Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red.
Let's talk a little more football before spring ball. And in Scarlet Colored Glasses, I forgot. Sorry, where we talk all things Husker football. So what do you think about Dylan Raiola?
Yeah, he's the needle mover in the offseason, isn't he?
My goodness.
I'm just gonna let the good feelings flow on this one. I mean, I could be pessimistic about it, I suppose, but geez, he just keeps showing up. And I'm just going to see a game with my uncle in Trev Albert's seats, and then they'll just move and we'll all just sit up front, and then we'll get a chant for his name. Listen, man, USC, no argument. Lincoln Riley has put quarterbacks in the league. There's no question.
3 Heisman.
Georgia's very, very good right now, but you're a drop in the bucket if you go to Georgia. You're one of many 5-stars. Not that Dylan's not great, but you're not going to get the fan response anywhere else in Nebraska. Then Nebraska. Nowhere. He's got a chance to make a legacy like no place else, and he wouldn't even have to do as much. It's kind of like the same with like Bryce McGowan's in basketball, right? We're at a point right now where this guy's he could really change the program. He could really be a Pied Piper and lead some big time recruits to come to Nebraska and get this ball rolling fast. And if the coaching staff, it's what it's supposed to, and it looks like what they're building around him. The longer he stays non-committed from all the other blue bloods mentioned here, the better for us, I think. I sometimes though I wonder, like, well, what is he waiting for from us? Like, he's going to commit before the season starts. So
it seems like he's got
waiting to see per se.
A couple of obviously I don't know if they're official or unofficial. They might be unofficial, but actual visits, right? The Georgia visit is happening according to his father March 18th, and then Nebraska on the 25th. I haven't heard about USC. I've also heard, Sipple's mentioned Oregon still might be a little bit of a player. So there could be a few others, but it does sound like you may want to make a decision here in the spring time frame. With Georgia, it's interesting. I mean, if you're trying to think of how you're going to recruit against, the 2-time defending national champion, obviously their OC left, but Kirby Smart's been leading that charge, I think. But they haven't had a lot of luck with 5-star quarterbacks at Georgia. They've recruited a lot of them, Justin Fields and Fromm and another one of the Jakes who left. Can't remember. And Stetson Bennett, who, wasn't one of those guys and is who had all those things. And Georgia isn't really known, at least recently now, with producing a whole bunch of wide receivers. That's Alabama, right? I mean, and so,
they've had AJ Green and a few guys, but
there you go.
But that's been a while.
That's like a decade ago, right?
Yeah, I know. It just seems like it's crazy how long ago that really was, but
yeah, exactly. And so, and then with USC, I mean, that is pretty compelling. I mean, he's going to walk on a campus, and the expectation is, he's can win a Heisman and be the number 1 draft pick. But he is also, Caleb Williams is still there for another year, and obviously it's a high bar. But I mean, that's going to be tough to beat out. But it should be interesting to see how this plays out. And you're right, if they land Raiola, it seems like they could put together a pretty darn good class even before they snap the ball in Minneapolis, because it just feels like they're going to be able to maybe have a really good class built around him if he gets to commit.
Yeah, March 25th is a huge date, and he's part of that. I had the list in front of me. I mean, there was a couple of 5-star guys, and one of the different publications, I think we had like the number 1.
Could have 3 5-star guys there, maybe. I think
it was something like that, and it was like the number 1 and number 3 guy in the country. Well, then they were also trying to convince the number 2 guy in the country to also make a visit that weekend. So imagine Nebraska having number 1, number 2, and number 3 recruits in the country on top of all these other 4-stars and guys that they're bringing in. It's going to be a big weekend, and again, it's. We've seen this before. I get, for Husker fans that are like, we've done Friday Night Lights and had Micah Parsons running around and all that. The reality here is are these really recruits that we have an honest shot at? That was the thing about the Friday Night Lights. It was great watching Micah Parsons run down the field, but you also looked at it and go, well, he's not coming here. It's nice that he was here for a weekend. But this is a different thing with Raiola for sure. And this last weekend, that was not expected. And this was it wasn't a recruiting weekend. This is the special loophole you get when your uncle is on the staff, is that the NCAA can't prevent you from coming down and seeing your relatives. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, I wonder, Boomer, maybe you know the legality of this, but we did see, Honky, you were at the game, right?
Yep.
So Dylan and his family are walking down to their front row seats, which are and Trev is in front of them, right? So could he interact with Trev? I mean, not the rest of the coaches. He can interact with his uncle, obviously, but I mean, can he talk to Trev Alberts? Or I mean, how is that working out? I'm a little confused on the.
I mean, there was.
I just want to buy him beer. That's all I know.
Yeah. there's certainly nothing hidden there. I mean, it was Trev has four seats and that he had there, and he was sitting with someone at the beginning, and then they had the other two seats were open. Well, about halfway through, that's when I think the Raiolas were up in one of the boxes, and I don't know if they were in the box with Coach Rhule or not. Maybe I'd presume so, but I don't know. But at one point, about middle of the game, they walked alongside the court, and you start hearing it. And I mean, the fans are going crazy. The student section was going nuts. And then the four seats that Trev was at, that's where Donovan, Dominic, Dylan, and then his younger brother, they took those seats, and they probably sat there for 20 minutes. Trev went off and did AD things with, whatever he was gone for a little bit. And then when he came back, handshakes and hugs, and the whole Raiola group took off. And so they were probably gone maybe with 5 minutes left in the game. There was a play. I rewatched the game when I got home, and Dylan was into the game. I mean, like he was cheering, like when Sam Hoiberg made a couple shots, he was cheering. And then there's one, it goes into the commercial break, and Sam Greasel dunks the ball. And in the background behind the hoop, you see Dylan, and he gets up and he's just cheering like crazy. And it was fun. I mean, you could tell he was getting into it. He loved the fan. He was interacting with the fans, throwing the bones, doing all that. So at the very least, for not being a recruiting weekend, I think it left a good impression on him.
And we actually had two, I'll go right to you in a second, Rob, two recruits there, right? Because that was probably his younger brother, Dayton, right? Who is also a Nebraska recruit. He just happens to be like 2020.
He has an offer already too. So.
Yeah. There's legitimately two recruits down there. Rob.
Oh, I was going to say it was Dylan Raiola. KJ Bolden listed as an athlete, was the number 2 athlete. Okay. And then defensive lineman Williams Nwaneri, I think is how you say his last name. It starts with an N, but it's NW, so it's Nwaneri. If those three were there on March 25th, it'd be the top 3 recruits in the country, all 5 stars.
Very cool.
Yeah, there was also a 5-star recruit at the basketball game for Hoiberg too.
Yeah, Bull,
last name Bull, not
John
related
Bull.
not related to Bull
son.
or Manute Bull. He's like one of the top recruits out of Kansas, or if not the top recruit out
Sunrise
of Kansas.
Christian,
yeah, and
I 4-star. I guess maybe some services.
Some places like Rivals or somewhere had him listed as a 5-star. He's a 7'2" center, and I guess apparently he was in love with what he was seeing. So
Well, we'll get to him when we get to basketball. But
we were just talking recruits, and I was all fired
preview.
up. So sorry, it's that Kool-Aid.
All right. Well, other things, Husker football, obviously we're gearing up. So on March 25th, they'll already have spring practice start. Is that right, Honky?
Yeah. So after spring break is done, then they'll start that up, and it's just going to be, 4 straight weeks or whatever that is, straight through to the spring game, which is April 22nd.
Right. And tickets are selling fast, but they're still available. Right?
Yeah. The last that we saw, there was like 44,000 tickets that were purchased already. And that was as of last week's Tunnel Talk that they listed that. So obviously I assume it's above that a little bit right now, but we're pushing hard here. I mean, Redcast Nation,
Well, speaking for a friend, Honky, if I were to buy a ticket, is it just general admission and you show up, or they assign seats? I haven't been to a spring game in years.
It was assigned seats. So I did get the 4 tickets right away, and so we have actual seats to go to, and by the time I was buying them, they were already the seats in the suites were already taken up, and the club seats were taken up, which a year ago is where we sat, and I delayed a couple of days, and I shouldn't have. So we're gonna be sitting outside like the plebes.
We're roughing it. Redcast on the rocks, it sounds like, more than anything.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Well, I mean, I think it's going to much anticipated spring ball. You know, speaking of actually what we expect to see for spring ball, it sounds like maybe we'll see some competition, maybe some contact. I mean, Mac, Honky, you guys expecting some actual hitting to happen out there?
There better be.
I mean, that's what they're kind of selling us. I mean, you know, we talked about it with SIP, but I mean, if you're not going to do it with 105 scholarship guys, when you going to do it?
Sure.
When you ever going to hit? If you don't got enough players now, I don't know.
Yeah.
And we need it, and the coaching staff needs to see this. They other than Raiola, nobody's with these guys last year. They know who's going to hit and who can take a hit and who can carry the ball after getting smoked. I mean, it's all evaluation right now, and I think they're going to let them run with it. I hope they do, and that to me would be one of the best signs going forward of all the talk, of all the workout videos and the recruiting hype and everything like that. If the players are hitting and practices is hard, and that's music to my ears at this point. Like that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I was listening to Sam McEwen today on one of the shows, and I never can remember. It might have been a SIP show, but he was talking about how he feels that Rhule is really not just diagnosed and took in all this information about what kind of went wrong or right during the Frost era, but he really he feels like Rhule has looked back 20 years and has thought about all the things that have happened really since Solich left, right? And that's how thorough he has been, right? And we've heard of him watching a lot of coaches be like, oh, I don't want to taint my opinion of these guys. I want to watch them fresh with my own eyes. I don't want to watch any video. But no, Rhule's watched every game and every practice last year. I mean, it seems like he's putting a lot of time and effort, and that's exactly what we wanted, right? A grinder.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You know, he even tweeted out a photo of him watching video from the 90s. How cool is that?
That's right.
I'll play
it was
this
betting, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I'll play this little clip here. This is Trev at the Team Jack Gala on Saturday night being asked about Rhule and just his thoughts, his initial thoughts here these first few months. But I thought this was really good, and this was from the Hurrdat Network, Anna Bellinghausen, talking with Trev.
Lastly, lots more football inside of Memorial Stadium ahead. It's a new era with Matt Rhule. What's been your first impression in working with him and his recruiting trail? We know he's been quite everywhere.
Well, yeah, it's hard keeping up with him. But no, Matt's he's been everything that I'd hoped. He's a great person. He's high integrity. He's got a lot of energy. He's a hard worker. And he's surrounded himself with really good people. So everybody's excited right now. We're undefeated, which is great. But I think you're going to see a disciplined team that plays hard, that has a good culture, and they're working really hard in recruiting. So it won't happen overnight, but I think that Coach Rhule's the right person to continue building Nebraska football back to where we all hope it can be.
You know, Dave, he hit on a lot of good things there, right? It won't happen overnight. There's the counter to the Kool-Aid, right? It won't happen overnight, but yet the right things are happening. They're grinding, they're working hard, they're recruiting hard, all those things, and it's going to be a physical team, and they're going to be disciplined, and those are the things that I want to hear right now. Those are the things that have been, hurting us for ever since we started this show.
I mean, there's a few things I can be critical about with Rhule and his staff. I mean, I wish they would have been more experienced, all that type of stuff. We could, whatever, right? I mean, that'll prove itself out. Hopefully, Garrett McGuire, not Garrett McGee, is what?
Garrett
McGuire is the next Lincoln Riley. I want him to be an offensive coordinator in a few years, and at 32 coaching the NFL. I don't care. That's why I hopefully that's what's going to happen, right? But I mean, could we have found a wide receiver coach with a few more years of experience? Sure, absolutely. But one thing I do love about what's been done here, and Trev mentioned it, is the support staff. Something that's driven me crazy for years is that we're a blue blood. We should act like a blue blood. We should have a support staff like a blue blood. And it's just not the number or as long as Rhule has a plan for all 40 people and they are doing things that are helping advance everyone to go forward and realize our full potential as a football program, that's worth every penny of them, right? Because I mean, the guy's getting paid $8 million a year for the next 7 or 8 years. What's 40 people at 100,000 or whatever it is, right? It's a lot of value there actually in those 40 people, in my opinion. Boomer, I mean, do you feel like having that? As long as you're utilizing those people to full effect, and you're just not hiring people to hire people, do you feel that will hopefully pay off in the long run?
You hit the nail on the head with that. You can have all the people you want, but if you're not organized and not working them all in the same direction, then it probably creates more trouble than it's worth. I mean, you could argue we kind of saw that in the last coaching staff, just how large the roster got at some point. I mean, we had, didn't they get to like 150 players at some point? I mean, was it really doing us any good?
Right.
Probably not. So it really just depends if this athletic department, which I will say this seems far more organized than any we've had in a while. And Trev really, seems to run things in a very business-like manner and gets everyone working on the same page. And Rhule seems to be working the same way. They kind of have the same culture in mind and same end goals. So it should have a positive impact. I mean, again, the organization is the key to it. So.
Well, Dave, when we had Adam McClintock on a couple of weeks ago, the college football professor with Matrix Analytical, the
great
company
show, I loved it. That's fun.
Oh yeah, wasn't it great? And that's the company that was hired by Trev to make the hire, right? And he talked about he referenced a Damon Benning statement of head coaches manage and coach the coordinators manage and coach the position coaches, and the position coaches coach the players. And it's just this process, and this is the structure, and this is how it's going to be. And we're all going to be kind of lockstep, and we're going to be saying the same things, and it's not going to be crazy. And, when you go back, we heard we heard things we can't talk about. But I will say, you think about in previous years, even think of last offseason, when you knew there was a clear disconnect at times between like Whipple and Frost. Just they weren't saying the same things in a public state, in a public setting. I mean, a lot of times you figure you can just kind of BS your way through it and kind of, get through a presser. But there were times where it's like, no, we're clearly not on the same page between this guy and this guy. And we've had that in previous, regimes when the AD and the coach and whoever it is, just this dysfunction. And right now you just feel like people are on the same page, and it absolutely starts at the very top there with Trev. I mean, the way that this is Trev's athletic department now. He's had about a year and almost 2 years now to really kind of get it built up in the way that I think he wants it to run, and now it's starting to feel like it's ready to go. I mean, really ready to take off.